Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, top players. Good luck, have fun.
Good luck, have fun, guys. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to Top Cut here at Norwalk. We are here at Unrated Gaming. We are sorry about all the background here, but guys, I'm so excited for this Top Cut match. It is actually a rematch from the last round of Swiss. We've got Mike Suleski versus Riley Factura, who we saw piloting kind of like a different rain team earlier today against Mike's kind of random team. There's a couple mons on there that were just like, you know, it's pretty interesting.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And so just a heads up, we did have Riley and Mike play each other in the last round of Swiss. Mike did win against Riley, so this is kind of like, you know, kind of like a rematch for them, especially kind of hard straight from the get-go, like just right into top cut.
I heard it was very exciting and very close, so
yeah.
Hopefully we'll see a repeat of that, a really good set.
I mean, you know, if you're Riley, you're hoping for a different outcome on this one, but if you're Mike, you're
like
hoping
an
for
easy
the same
win, right?
outcome.
Yeah, but we like the games. We're spectators.
Okay, and Riley actually locking in already with the team we saw earlier, but Mike's team on your left side, we've got this Landorus there and Cresselia, Mawile, Snorlax, Charizard, and Tapu Fini, and again, Riley is using that Metagross, Tapu Koko, Landorus there, and Snorlax, Pelipper, and Ludicolo team.
So Mawile is in a place where it's faster than most Trick Room abusers in the format, like Snorlax, but it still functions best under Trick Room. So I think it is really important for Mike to identify exactly what form of speed control and what kind of positioning he will need to place his Mawile under. Especially if he uses Rock Slide on his Mawile, like the common sets, then he will be able to have an answer against Pelipper and such under the Trick Room. And that is something that might come in handy, even if, like, you know, the Rock Slide isn't hitting a Charizard.
Well, I think what's also super interesting is when you see Mawile, you usually see it paired up with Rain on its own side.
Right.
But Riley's bringing the Rain, and Mawile, you know, one of the favorite archetypes that people wanted to bring back was that Gothma with Gothitelle and, like, having that ability to, like, you know, heal, pull, shadow tag, and, like, Trick Room as well. And there's not a lot of that, like, here in Mike's. I mean, we've got the Cresselia, and Cresselia notorious for, you know, carrying everybody's favorite hated move, which is Ally Switch. And, you know, maybe we'll see that here from Mike. Not quite sure how their match really went. All I know was Mike won and Riley didn't.
Yeah.
So it'll be kind of fun to see how they bring that back into here.
I think one thing we can assume is the Charizard to come out over Mawile because Mike is playing against Rain. But
so actually, yeah, Mike leading with that Tapu Fini and Cresselia as we have that Pelipper and Ludicolo lead from Riley, which, you know, the last time we saw him took him a couple matches to finally realize that was, you know, his kind of big win condition on him.
Yeah.
But first Cresselia of the day that I've seen, so this is gonna be fun.
And I'm gonna go back on what I said because I really like what Mike is doing here. I think this is like a much better, much more flexible way to deal with Rain because Charizard is still weak to Rain even if it can change the weather.
Yeah, and I think, you know, like you said, Mike has more flexibility here because both of these Pokemon can take hits really comfortably. Like, even a Watery MZ that we know Ludicolo carries does damage to these Pokemon, sure, but not as much as it could to other Pokemon, even under that Rain.
Yeah.
And, you know, both of these Pokemon traditionally very bulky. And as we go into this first turn, Ludicolo using Energy Ball into that Tapu Fini spot does some good damage, does nice damage on there. And Hurricane following it up on there. Almost, actually does get the knockout on there, so just a really aggressive turn from Riley just from the get-go here. But Toxic from that Cresselia into the Pelipper, only connecting because of the fact that Pelipper is not on misty terrain.
Yeah, what an interesting play. I figured that this was going to be a Trick Room turn, assuming that there's a Snorlax in the back, but I think this might be a more long-term game plan that we need to take more time to watch before we can say anything definitive.
I mean, that was an aggressive turn, and, like, you know, the Snorlax is coming in for that Tapu Fini now. And I think Riley might be kind of in a little bit of a bad position because, you know, you want to preserve that Pelipper for that Rain later on, but that Poison and that Toxic, it's an odd choice when you pair it up with the Tapu Fini. I think I know that when I was running it, I always had that problem of, like, don't forget you're on misty terrain and you have to hit Pokemon that aren't touching the ground. So I think really nice choices on Mike's side to be able to pick up on that.
Yeah. But I do think right now the initiative is on Riley to hit first and hit hard. So,
which he did turn one, that was crazy.
Yeah, and without the Trick Room, he's going to do that again. So I want to see what Mike is going to do to react to that because I don't think he's in the position to ask the questions. It's Riley that's asking the questions.
Yeah, and especially because, like you said, he didn't get that Trick Room up, but Riley will be able to grind that Pelipper, going to want to preserve for later, bringing out his own Snorlax. So we have the Snorlax mirror on the field, but this Snorlax on Mike's side is going to be protecting itself from any damage as that Ludicolo goes goes for an energy ball into that protected Snorlax slot, leaving this Cresselia free to use Trick Room. So I don't know if they actually matched up Snorlaxes in their previous round, and who might be the fastest Snorlax.
Yeah, given the position of Snorlax and Riley's team, I figured that it has far less support. So maybe this is a dedicated Trick Room counter than like a Trick Room sweeper on its own. Especially because the rain team that Riley's using does not have Trick Room, so he needs a more independent Snorlax that can just be more self-sufficient.
Self-sufficient Snorlax. I like that. No, and that's a good point because there's not a lot of speed modes on Riley's side except that Ludicolo Swift Swim and that Pelipper Rain. Whereas a lot of Mike's Pokemon that we've seen from that team preview really rely on that speed control. But this Snorlax, so Mike's Snorlax is going to go first. I'm not sure if it's a speed tie. Does get that belly drum and will be consuming its berry, getting back all that health. So we'll be at max attack right now.
Very threatening on the get-go. Oh my god.
Right, but Riley's Snorlax is actually going to be a curse variant. So, you know, after some earlier hardware functions, curse wasn't really allowed, but it's been kind of making that comeback now. You know, sacrificing your speed, which is already a slow Pokemon, for that attack and defense boost. As this Cresselia continues to surprise me using Light Screen now, and Riley rounding out this turn with that Waterium Z.
This is very, very interesting, especially with the light screen up. That is a very cool, I don't want to say tech, because this seems very integral to his protecting the Snorlax strategy. However, this particular interaction between the Hydro Vortex and the light screen is just really good for Mike, I think. It's just not even going to go in. Like, it's crazy.
And and that's a good point because you know that light screen, even with that rain boosted like Waterium Z, like you said, doesn't do that half damage to that Snorlax. I mean, it's now in the green, it's got that berry. And now the question is, does Mike go for that recycle? Does Mike, like, what is his option now? Like,
Riley Snorlax is going first because it's -1 with +1 attack. So Snorlax is in a really weird place.
Both of these Snorlaxes are in
Both are, because if Riley Snorlax fails to take out Mike Snorlax, then Mike Snorlax is going to do big damage. But if Riley Snorlax does enough damage, then Mike Snorlax won't even move.
And I think right now, then it's like Mike's decision is what does he do? He is going to be withdrawing that Cresselia, saving it for later. I'm going to be setting out this Mawile. Oh, my girl is on the field, intimidating that Snorlax. So going to be getting rid of that curse that it had earlier, that boost from it, as the Snorlax from Riley's side going to be using Double Edge into Mike's Snorlax. Not quite enough to pick up that KO because it's not max attack, but now Mike's Snorlax going to be going for that return at full attack. Going to be picking up that KO easily on that Ludicolo.
Bye-bye Ludicolo. That was just too much damage. That's not fair. I really like the Mawile switch in, mainly because I think Riley's win condition under Trick Room is to threaten Mike's Snorlax with slightly less damaging but slower Curselax, and with the Intimidate, now attack-wise, Riley's back to like square one. He's back to +0, and now he has to set up again. But does he have the time? Like, can he give Mike another opening? Because here, obviously, Snorlax is super low, and it reasonably could faint this turn, but the fact that it's still up and able to attack is such a big deal for Riley, because if he lets that Snorlax attack first, then that's just going to completely take away his chances of winning this game.
Well, and I think, so Riley bringing in that Metagross in place of that fainted Ludicolo. But I think that Mawile too was, like you said, a good switch in because of the fact that, one, it is also really slow, but now Riley has to kind of pick and choose what Pokemon he wants to get rid of. Because Mega Mawile has access to that huge power, doubling its attack, so you've got, on Mike's side, 2 really strong Pokemon now. And it's kind of like a toss-up of what do you do. Mike taking the full 45 seconds to kind of decide on what he wants to lock into.
This turn is the most important turn of this game, I think. It determines Snorlax's survivability.
Oh man, and like, you know, that Snorlax, like the Snorlax matches I think is always really tough, but now we've got both of the Mega evolutions on here, both Gen 3 Steel type Pokemon with Megas here, and you know, against Snorlaxes, so kind of an interesting variant of a mirror match, I would say, but the Sucker Punch from that Mawile going to the Mega Metagross, not enough to pick up the knockout on it, but it's so close to it as Riley gets the knockout onto Mike's Snorlax on this turn. Does get a little bit of recoil damage, but is still at near full health, and Stomping Tantrum from Riley's Metagross connecting to this Mega Mawile, and almost but not quite picks up that knockout.
I don't really have a problem with Mike's board position right now. I do feel like Riley's Snorlax switch in as Cresselia went for the Trick Room was very rough for him, but I still think there are some outs in regards to, you know, just like I think at this point with Snorlax there needs to be a couple critical hits, but Metagross is threatened by the Sucker Punch, so maybe... Oh, he's looking to forfeit.
Alright, so Mike potentially forfeiting this match here. And I think that's not too bad of an option on here because I don't think he wants to. I'm not sure how much he showed of that Cresselia on here, but I think there's not a lot he can do against this team right now. I mean, that Snorlax, even at that +1 minus, at that, it was at that +1 attack and then was intimidated. It still, has that speed advantage in that Trick Room mode, and I don't think Mike played that badly. I think he was just caught off guard. I think losing Tapu Fini so early.
Right. I definitely think that there are going to be adaptations from both sides because I feel like both players last game were put into situations on different turns where they felt like they were about to lose. In Riley's case, that was when Snorlax was setting up on Mike's side, and then for Mike, that moment was when Riley's Curselax was able to defeat the Belly Drum Lax that Mike was running.
And I think this might just be a remnant from them playing in that last round assist, but Riley bringing that Snorlax in alongside his Ludicolo and his Pelipper when we'd never seen it before in his previous rounds, I think this kind of speaks to the fact that he understood, if I can't stop Trick Room, I'll use it to my advantage as best as I can, and we kind of saw that variant over here.
I want Mike to do a total mix-up, actually. I want him to bring Charizard and use his Belly Drum Snorlax outside Trick Rooms. I think that might be really good against the Snorlax that, in my opinion, Riley is somewhat forced to bring. Because the Trick Room mode of Mike is so much stronger than Riley's, because Riley doesn't have a Trick Room mode. But because Riley doesn't have a Trick Room answer otherwise, I feel like Snorlax is a crutch that he has to bring into this matchup.
That's a fair point because I also think that Snorlax has such crazy survivability even compared to outside of Trick Room as long as you can set it up properly. And I think Mike has enough firepower on his side to be able to do that comfortably. Have firepower with that Charizard there. I actually don't know what variant that Charizard is, so there's a possibility that they might have not brought mods to each other. And Mike taking as much time as he can to kind of really think about this matchup here. It's kind of hard when you go back to back against that because now you're playing like that best of 5 essentially against each other.
Yeah, and we've seen from the Onug invitation last year that changing from a best of 3 to a best of 5 or a best of 7 creates so many additional mind games that it changes the types of teams that are good.
I mean, it's exhausting because you've been playing them so consistently against each other. And, now we've got actually a bit of a lead change-up from both sides. So Mike leading with that Charizard and Cresselia, and Riley leading with Tapu Koko and Ludicolo. And I think I appreciate both of the changes on here because I feel like Riley answered the lead switch that Mike was going to have.
I really like Riley's lead here. I think Riley's lead here punishes Charizard very hard. One thing that people talked about when it came to Rain last year was the double duck. You lead Pelipper and Golduck and you just fire your Rain stuff right away. But towards the end of the season, people were leading Golduck with Tapu Koko and they were finding themselves leading into slower opponents and they Volt Switch into the Pelipper and go for the Z Hydro Pump. Perhaps a similar line of play can be taken here.
Yeah, and so Charizard protecting itself on this turn as Ludicolo goes for the fake out onto Cresselia, going to cause it to flinch on this turn. But I think that was an electric type move. I completely missed that.
That was a Volt Switch onto the Charizard.
Yeah, so good call on that. Sorry, I looked away for half a second and that text went by so fast.
It is pretty fast though. I almost missed it too. Cresselia here, I don't think applies enough pressure, but I guess after seeing that Volt Switch, I think Mike has a clue what's happening.
And that Charizard being switched out for a Landorus on Mike's side of the field. And so any sort of Volt Switch won't be connecting with this Landorus. It does get an Intimidate into both Pokemon on here, but they are, again, not very physical attackers here. But just kind of ganging up onto that slot. So that Volt Switch, if it didn't hit, was it was going to hit the Charizard or it was going to hit this Landorus, and now that Hydro Pump was going to do both. But now we've got that Trick Room up.
Yeah, with the Trick Room, I wonder how Riley wants to approach his Weather mode, because I think Ludicolo here has a crucial role to fill as a damage threat, but if you do bring Rain under Trick Room and, if you can't get that instant burst on the turn you switch in, then the higher speed is going to be a detriment for the next 4 to 3 turns.
And No, that's a good point because I think Riley really has to consider his rainbow and when is the best time to bring it. Whereas Mike, considering whatever his last Pokemon might be, has to really think, hey, what do I do now? Like, this Landorus has taken a lot of damage. And Riley is going to be withdrawing that Ludicolo, going to be setting out that Pelipper, actually. So setting up the rain now, possibly for that Thunder that we had seen earlier on that Tapu Koko, maybe wanting to get rid of that Cresselia. We know that it carries Toxic. We know that it does, like, can do some massive damage. As Light Screen from Cresselia once more onto the field, going to be raising the special defense of
U-turn.
Yeah, but U-turn from Landorus going into that Pelipper slot. Going to break any sort of slash that it might have as it goes back to Mike. And now he has kind of the option to decide what he wants to do. He might have that Trick Room Sweeper in the back because, you know, oh, but he brings in that Charizard instead.
I have a feeling that this Charizard is not as invested in speed. Therefore, it's better suited for using in Trick Room.
All right, so Volt Switch from Tapu Koko connecting with that Cresselia. Going to be going back to Riley here. And again, we are in Trick Room, so it'll be interesting to see if Riley ends up choosing that Ludicolo and kind of going after that instead. Might be an odd choice, but I mean, it depends on what he has with that last Pokemon. Sometimes the odd choice is the only choice you have to make. And in Riley's case, I'm guessing that is. So now that Ludicolo going to be hitting that field, and I don't know what type of Charizard we've got here.
I think Riley has to conserve his Pelipper here because we don't know the Mega Evolution on the Charizard yet, but I think given the way he's played this, it's safe to assume that it's Charizard Mega Y. And if that is the case, then on the turn the Mega Evolution is activated, Pelipper will be really awkwardly positioned because you want it in the back for rain, but if you don't, so I think the switch is pretty inevitable, and maybe Mike can even punish that by reading into it.
And Riley does like switch out that Pelipper for that Snorlax that we saw before, and good call on that, Terry, because we do get that Charizard Y here, so the Sun will be coming out with that Drought, getting rid of that rain. And that Ludicolo though was still going to be quote-unquote fastest on the field, but slowest because of Trick Room for this turn. As Ludicolo goes for the Fake Out pressure though, going into that Charizard turn as, the Toxic into the slot that Pelipper was. And I think against that Snorlax that we saw, even after one curse was really powerful, is a good choice right now.
So the way he Toxic there was onto the switch. So Mike did that knowing or thinking that it was very likely for Riley to switch the Snorlax in as Cresselia was there. Yeah, and the terrain is not Misty terrain, so you know, like, stuff like that can be affected, and we already know his Snorlax is cursed, and it doesn't show Facade because Double Edge was already used. I think with this Toxic, now Snorlax has a shelf life of 7 turns maximum, even with Recycle.
And Riley switching out that Ludicolo, bringing in that Pelipper to that Fake Out, I think was just in a way to like stop any sort of damage. But now Pelipper once more bringing with it the rain. So we've got kind of like this weather war happening once more, which I think people were kind of expecting more in like the mid-season, and now here towards the end, it's coming back again as Landorus switches into that slot where Charizard once was, gonna get Intimidate into both the Pelipper and the Snorlax. More importantly, on that Snorlax, gonna be putting it at -1 on attack right now. And the Snorlax using Double Edge into that Landorus slot. That -1 does still minus to knock it out.
That 120 damage is very big. It's hard to ignore that, I think, compared to Return. Like, that damage increase between the two moves is surprisingly noticeable.
And once more, Toxic going into that Pelipper now. So both of these Pokemon on the field can be slowly losing HP over the course of the turn, which I think sometimes with Snorlax is a double-edged sword because of the fact that it carries berries.
Yeah. But like, sometimes you can make it so that you can play around knockoff by preemptively damaging yourself and activating your own berry. So I think it comes down to the player's own creativity and like coordination in terms of how he or she wants to execute his or her game plan.
And Charizard now coming back onto the field, gonna bring with that Sun one more time, getting rid of that rain and boosting all the fire type moves on this field. But again, the Snorlax is still kind of like in a scary position, and I mean, I think losing a Landorus is kind of hard when it's really good pivot for Intimidate cycles.
Yeah. I think the plan was for Snorlax to stay poisoned, and then Landorus can switch in multiple times, at least twice, so that Snorlax has to spend turns setting up, but that just accelerates its clock with the poison. I think Pelipper has to switch out here though, like last time, to cancel out the weather.
and I think that's the hard part about like Weather Wars is that you have to really be considerate of, you have to be really aware of what's being set up at that moment. And I mean that trick room is still, helping hand Cresselia. I have not seen that in a very long time.
Oh my god.
So now this the Snorlax is going to be using Double Edge, going to be faster because of that trick room. Manages to connect with that Charizard, does not quite do, does a little bit over half. The Scald in the sun against this Charizard though does not get any, does not do any damage, as Heat Wave connects on both Pokemon with that helping hand in the sun, and the Poison is going to be almost enough to knock out that that Snorlax is going to activate that berry, but going to say bye to that Pelipper. So close on that, but I think that was a really good call from Mike.
Yeah, the helping hand, I'm not sure if that was kept secret from Riley, but I don't think Riley was really ready to react to that.
And,
but, yeah.
And Trick Room does expire on this turn, so now the Snorlax is going to be the slowest thing on the field once more. The Ludicolo in the back can no longer, really benefit from that from the rain because there's no more rain mode, but Tapu Koko on the field going to threaten a lot of damage still into this Charizard.
Yeah, from an earlier stream, we've seen Tapu Koko's attacking moves, which are Thunder, Volt Switch, and Dazzling Gleam. Under the sun, the Thunder move is not going to be very accurate, so we're not going to see Riley use that. Obviously, Charizard is low, so that's not something he necessarily has to worry about, but going into later games, I think he will have to make sure that his weather positioning game is up top notch, because it just has to be, he just has to preemptively position his Pelipper so that he can switch it back in to cancel out stuns no matter what. But I don't think that was really done in this particular game.
Snorlax is going to be going back to Riley as he sends out that Ludicolo right next to it. This Ludicolo no longer able to operate under the rain like it wants to, as Charizard protects itself, because any sort of attack actually from that Tapu Koko will knock it out. And Tapu Koko going for the Volt Switch into that Charizard spot, which was protected. And now we've got that trickle once more for Mike, so kind of reading that really nicely and understanding that, hey, he needs to do some damage on here. And that light screen is also now expired as well.
Another thing that reset was the Toxic damage counter on the Snorlax. Now, the Toxic is going to continue losing 1/16 of its maximum health per turn, rather than the incrementally increasing values that we have seen.
Alright, and so fake out from that Ludicolo into that Charizard as we go, as Mike actually uses Light Screen on here, and so the Charizard not going to be able to attack, as Tapu Koko manages to get the Volt Switch into that Charizard slot, is going to do enough damage to knock it out. And now we've got the last Pokemon on Mike's side versus, these three Pokemon that are left on Riley's side.
Yeah, the thing with Cresselia is that it's very hard to KO, but with Snorlax, it can get the necessary boost to threaten it. Obviously, with this much damage, it's going to take a little more time and care for it to get to that point, but Riley still has two other Pokemon that are major damage threats for his team, so maybe even Ludicolo, after he stalls out the Sun turns, he is able to... Oh, okay. This changes things.
Yeah, so that Snorlax is the last Pokemon on Mike's side, and we did see that against Riley's one curse Snorlax. It was a little bit easier to take down afterwards. It took a lot of damage on here. But I think it's in a different position now.
Yeah, I really like this adjustment from Mike actually, because he brought Charizard to have a even chance at a Weather War. But not just that, the way Mike conserved the Snorlax until the very end and wore down Riley's with Toxic and other random sources of damage, I think that's going to really allow Mike to make the safe play to eliminate Snorlax without having to resort to hard setups that might be unnecessary.
I think it's still kind of an uphill battle for him though, because now Ludicolo going back to Riley, going to get that Tapu Koko once more in here, and this Snorlax, even though it's poison, is still going to be kind of at a considerable spike in recycle. But protect from Mike on his own Snorlax as Riley Snorlax goes for the double edge into Mike's Snorlax, and that Toxic from Mike's Cresselia going now into that Tapu Koko. And I mean, honestly, I really enjoy the mechanics of Toxic. I think it makes people really consider about their switches and kind of puts things into the favor of Mike, where he's like, hey, now I know he's got choices to make here.
Yeah, that's a hard clock on the amount of turns Riley can have with his Breath Alive. So that just means that Mike has unlocked an additional possible win condition where he can just stall out with the Snorlax, recycling, protecting, recycling, until the Toxic just wears them out.
But then the question is, does he have a way to touch that Ludicolo if it comes down to this? But helping him from Cresselia into Mike's Snorlax as Riley's Tapu Koko goes for a protect, not going to take damage. And Earthquake, actually, from Mike's Snorlax, that is something that I actually very rarely see. Going to be connecting only with the Snorlax on Riley's side as that Tapu Koko protects. Going to knock out that Snorlax, I think, even at that poison state. So that is quite a surprise, actually.
I believe Earthquake on Snorlax is much more common with Cresselia given the Levitate, which makes a lot of sense. I was originally very surprised at the frequency of the move in Battle Spot, but I think the fact that it's that popular means there's a solid level of practice that has already, well, not practice,
I'd seen it on a handful of streams, and it was really surprising to me, but that was because it was paired up with Pokemon that were weak to this type move. But I think that helping him Earthquake, especially like for Mike, who's like, you know what, I've got nothing left in the back, and you've got this Tapu Koko who's poison. Like, I mean, even this Tapu Koko at this level right now, it's kind of like a sitting duck, I think, as opposed to, you know, Cresselia, which is a floating duck. But that Ludicolo is going to be like the biggest threat right now for Mike to take care of, because that Tapu Koko is going to be slowly getting drained.
Yeah. And then here's another protect. I think Mike is really playing into that Toxic Clot win condition.
Which is fair, but the fake out going into that Snorlax after it's been protected, and like you said, that Toxic win condition. So now Riley, unable to kind of switch out, is on a different sort of timer than that actual timer as this poison here. But Thunder not connecting in here because of that protect. Riley just understanding he has to go after that Snorlax.
Yeah. There we go. So the reason why he played that defensively is, I think, to stall out the electric terrain. Now there really isn't enough damage for either of Mike's Pokemon to be fainting, and Snorlax still has ways to recover health with a cycle. So honestly, there needs to be some secondary effects and critical strikes for Riley to take this game, I think.
Alright, yeah, and Thunder connecting onto this Snorlax. Ooh, getting the paralysis. So this might count when the Snorlax's turn is up. Water Z from Ludicolo going probably into that Snorlax to try to get as much damage out into it. It hasn't consumed its berry yet, but it probably will after this Z move connects. This Cresselia, I don't think has a lot of offensive pressure on it. I don't think we've actually seen any sort of action from it.
Yeah, we saw a Toxic, Trick Moon helping him.
Alright, so this is just enough to proc that berry on that Snorlax. Going to eat it back up. Gets the Earthquake. No paralysis on this turn. And I think, you know, just something like that stacking Toxic berry will be enough for Mike to kind of get this, as that Tapu Koko does get knocked out.
Yeah. Now that Ludicolo has expended its Z move and there is no weather boost for it to threaten other Pokemon with, this is just really hard. This game doesn't even have to go to Toxic turns now. The fact that Snorlax is so healthy and yet still so hard hitting relative to Ludicolo just means that I think this game is for Mike to take.
And I mean, you know, there's nothing wrong with playing it safe though, because now that paralysis, that 1 in 3 chance, I think it's still a 1 in 3 chance of, like, you know, being paralyzed on like that turn.
Yeah.
It's still something that Mike needs to be very aware of, I think. And so I think playing to say, oh, but Riley forfeiting on this turn, so we will be going to a game 3 between them. And this is, I think, really stressful for both of them.
Yeah, because from Riley's perspective, he has to look out for both Megas, Mawile and Charizard Y, at the same time. And, you know, those kind of things are easier said than done.
I think on Riley's side, now he has to really, really respect the threat that Cresselia has been bringing. That Toxic in the helping hand, Mike kind of using it to the best of his advantage on this turn, and then keeping that Snorlax a secret until like the last possible moment. Like, yeah. I think that was what helped him the most on here.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty reasonable to say that Mike would bring Charizard and not Tapu Fini, because from Game 2 his win condition was very heavily Toxic based. Maybe he's going to not use Toxic in Game 3, but I felt that it was very effective in Game 2, and I just find it unlikely that Mike would suddenly undo his winning formula just to get a chance at surprising Riley. Both these players are very experienced veteran players. I don't think those kind of, you know, quirky, cute mind tricks to always work on them, I think doing that would be a very high risk.
And I think what's hard too is that, like, obviously, you know, Metagross won't be able to get poisoned, but that Charizard Y that we saw with that heat wave, like, you know, Metagross, it's gonna melt in that sun against that. And I think that's like a hard thing for Riley to really consider, is like, how do you stop this sort of Cresselia? Like, as a Pokemon in general, it is a hard Pokemon to stop. Like, you know, you want to talk about Pokemon that like are really bulky. Snorlax is one of them, but so is Cresselia. And I think for him, his biggest win condition is, how do I stop that Toxic from hitting me consistently? Because he can't really stop that from happening unless Mike brings his own Toxic Mania, like you said. And, you know, if you're Mike, you're not bringing that.
Yeah, I don't think he will. Especially because Feeny isn't even a good answer to Ludicolo. Ludicolo is just very good against opposing water types. So I have to say that bringing Feeny here would be a bit of a major deviation from what he used to win in Game 2.
Well, especially because like that Energy Ball did so much damage on top of Feeny, allowing that Pelipper just clean up that knockout with the Hurricane.
Yeah.
And it's one of those tougher things. And so now going to this Game 3 for the top 4 matches, as we've got this Landorus and Cresselia lead, so a bit of a change now again from Mike, as Riley leads Tapu Koko and Ludicolo once more.
Yeah, I think Riley has identified that out of the 2 Megas, Charizard Y is probably the Pokemon that Mike is going to bring, purely because of the way Mike was unable to have any control over the field effects, such as terrain, because, you know, his own Misty Terrain interrupted with a Toxic Plan, and he couldn't control his weather. So I just don't think that is something that Mike would try again by bringing Mawile, and that's why this lead is like still good in Riley's book. But obviously the Landorus here messes up that plan a little bit, so I'm just excited to see what he would do. I would assume a Fake Out onto Landorus, but Coco can honestly switch out with Volt Switch or even go for like big damage.
Alright, yeah, and so that Fake Out from Ludicolo does go into that Landorus, as Tapu Koko goes for Dazzling Gleam into both Pokemon, showing once again that Life Orb, as this Cresselia goes for Light Screen on this first turn. Not going for any sort of Toxics, not going for any Trick Room on here. I'm just going to protect itself against special moves, which, you know, like that Dazzling Gleam.
Yeah. With that Light Screen being set up without any major damage done, now Riley as an offensive player has to really care about how much mileage he's getting out of each attacking move, because Mike's team is designed to be bulky, so it's designed to survive these attacks that Riley has and then wear him down. So Riley's going to have to creatively find openings and chip the opponent without sacrificing too much of his own Pokemon.
Well, and I think it's so smart of Mike to use that Light Screen variant, because so many Pokemon rely on special attacks, and, you know, Aurora Veil is nice, and like Double Screens is nice sometimes, you know, the other screen being Reflect, but I think in this case he's made some really good choices, and Riley's starting off this turn with that Volt Switch into this Cresselia, so going to be going back to Riley, you know, giving him the option of kind of deciding what he wants to bring onto this battlefield. You know, this Landorus has that option of like, has the ability to survive now some of the stuff that Ludicolo can throw at it, as Pelipper does bring in this rain mode right now, and so next turn this Ludicolo will be activating its Swim ability. Does go for that Hydro Vortex from the get-go, probably into that
Landorus, right?
I would like to say Cresselia, because I think the Cresselia is a bigger threat.
Right. But I'm not sure if Cresselia would be able to survive. I mean, would be able to be knocked out by that. I feel like most Cresselia. Oh, okay.
So it is a Landorus. No, that is smart. And so it does manage to knock it out. And you know, I think it's still hard because that Cresselia is still kind of a big threat. Like
oh, yeah,
right now,
it's such a big issue now.
Toxic. And you know, behind those screens as well, it's one of those things where, man, now you can't do as much attack, but now you're also giving us the option to poison you.
Yeah, like maybe it might have been better for Riley to Fake Out into Cresselia rather than Landorus, but maybe that's like too soon to tell because the game is still going on.
But I mean, Charizard's now in that good spot to be able to you know, to set up that sun again, and we saw that even with all of like these water type moves, that Charizard took that so nicely, and now, you know, Riley's used that water Z move, so this Charizard isn't really that scared of it. As Riley withdraws that Pelipper in for that Snorlax. Oh man, these Snorlax battles.
I think this is kind of predictable with Mike's game plan. I feel like it's very reasonable for him to use the Toxic onto the switching Pelipper, because of the fact that he's been switching out Teleport for a Charizard every time Charizard Mega Evolved.
Yeah,
so let's see if there's any mind games in process.
Well, Charizard protecting itself this turn, not going to want to take any sort of water type move from Ludicolo. Actually, an Ice Beam from Ludicolo into that Charizard slot as Mike goes for a Trick Room on this turn. So Riley kind of getting that Snorlax in almost for free in a sense.
Yeah, but now he's opening himself to Toxic every time he sets up or attacks, and I don't think Cresselia is going to go down that easily before the Toxic is able to get up.
And also there's the fact that this Charizard in Sun has that boosted Heat Wave as well to be able to do some damage. Could be fishing for some burns as well, which will also be super beneficial for Mike.
I think here Riley has two options. Keep Snorlax, set it up, and do as much damage as possible before Snorlax faints from the poison damage, or switch to Pelipper and get the weather back. And I think both plays are like debatably strong, and they have different threats that Riley has to take care of before that kind of line of play can get him a win.
Well, we're also in Trick Room still, so now, you know, even if he does bring in that rain once more, he's going to have to switch it out maybe for that Ludicolo, because that Ludicolo at that Swift Wave isn't going to like that Trick Room. But Mike does switch out his Charizard for his own Snorlax, so kind of, you know, the same form that we saw from that game too. And it's going to be a hard game to play everything right now as that double edge from
That's a lot of damage. Wow.
As that, oh no, the Toxic Avoid from Riley's Snorlax.
That is huge.
It's gonna be a big deal right there.
Oh,
but
yeah.
Snorlax is gonna be chomping down on its berry on Mike's side, gonna get that health back. But I mean that double edge and that toxic miss is gonna really hurt Mike right now.
Yeah, I think at this point Riley has made up his mind. He is going to keep a Snorlax, and you know, especially after seeing Charizard preemptively switch out, maybe reading the play that Riley was about to make. But you know, the fact that he is a cursed Snorlax gives him an edge in the Snorlax mirror. Unlike Game 2, both Snorlaxes are on the board at around the same time, so it's not like Mike is getting a significant advantage out of getting free toxic damage with the Snorlax.
Right. I don't think Mike's quite out of it yet, though. I mean, he still has a lot of options to go here. I think as long as he keeps that Snorlax around and can manage to at least land a toxic or at least do something to either this Ludicolo or that Snorlax, he'll be fine. Riley going for another double edge, though, and nothing from Mike's side, no protect from there. And using a return without any sort of belly drum into that Ludicolo spot does a lot of damage, so gets into that half health, and Toxic connecting on this turn on Riley's side, onto Riley's Snorlax. And, you know, this Ludicolo is now going to be rounding out this turn, going to be using Energy Ball once more into that Snorlax. It might, it's actually not even close. I don't know why I thought it would be enough.
So I think this turn, Riley has a very, very clear thing that he can do, but it depends on a speed tie, because under Trick Room in Game 1, Mike's Snorlax went first. But last turn, Riley's Snorlax went first, as well as the turn before. So I think it's safe to assume that both Snorlaxes are the same speed.
And I think right now, you know, if Mike's got that recycle on his Snorlax, he's gonna have to really like maybe want to use it right now. Or and the light screen that Mike had been setting up has been paying dividends. And I think, you know, part of him maybe wants to bring that back out again because, you know, like that special boost is so nice. But Charizard coming to the field, gonna be taking that double edge attack from Snorlax. It's gonna be doing a lot of damage on there. Gets into them 73, but manages to proc the berry on Riley's Snorlax. And this is one of those things where you're just, if you're Mike, you're kind of breathing heavily right now because you're freaking. You know, this is like really stressful, I think.
It is.
And as Cresselia manages to get another light screen on here, Ludicolo going for an Energy Ball against this Charizard does literally almost no damage. I think that was maybe one HP down. Oh no, it was like 1 or 2. Minimal damage on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a quadruple resistance, so I guess that's only expected. I think what matters, though, is that regardless of the damage taken from the Energy Ball, Charizard is currently under range to get KO'd by Riley Snorlax's double edge. And that means there's going to be some Trick Room reversals, protects, or switches going on.
And Riley's actually withdrawing his Ludicolo, going to bring in Tapu Koko and bring in that terrain once more. So, you know, maybe if he doesn't go after that Charizard this turn with that Snorlax, he can go after it next turn with that Koko.
Riley might be calling a Protect Trick Room reversal here.
Ooh, all right. And so Mike protecting his oh, you know what?
He is, right?
Yeah,
he totally is,
Mike's protecting on there. Oh no, Toxic from Mike into that Tapu Koko slot
Never
as
mind.
Riley goes for that double edge once more. I think Mike might have been too wary about that because that's not something you really want to see happen. And so Riley's Snorlax getting more and more.
Oh, that was the last turn of Trick Room.
Was
Never
the last
mind.
Trick Room?
My apologies. Since that was the last turn of Trick Room, Riley's switch into Tapu Koko was totally calculated because he just looks at the touchscreen. Trick Room has one more turn left, and I think both players know that Charizard has to protect that turn. So for Riley, that was a totally safe switch. Wow.
You know, if Mike has Ally Switch on that Cresselia, this would be the perfect time to show it, I think.
That would be very exciting to watch, but that would be a nightmare to play against. Oh my god.
I mean, this Charizard, I think it'd be hard for Mike to come back from this if he loses the Charizard here, because that Snorlax we know won't be able to really be able to survive a lot of damage from all of Riley's Pokemon here. And, you know, Riley actually withdrawing that Snorlax is going to reset the poison turns for later as he sent out that Ludicolo into this slot. And
Charizard goes for a double protect and it fails.
Ooh, which means we've got this Volt Switch happening. This Charizard is going to be lost now, fainting, and now we're going to have the Snorlax and this Cresselia, which also isn't super bad because, you know, we do have that Earthquake option from that Snorlax, but it's just a matter of if we assume that these Snorlaxes are the same speed, Mike has to win a couple speed ties, and that is the hardest part of this game because it's completely out of your control.
And I think it has to be done under Trick Room, so here it is. Here's the Trick Room setup, and now, if we are correct, then there are some speed ties that will determine how this game goes. Because I think for both Snorlaxes, the answer is clear. One Snorlax wants to attack, one Snorlax wants to survive. And since they've been going first basically randomly, it's just really hard to, like, you know, calculate the risk involved with making this play. But given the situation that Mike is in right now, I think that's the optimal play for Mike to make. But the same is true for Riley.
And I mean, it's hard for me to see kind of an out for Mike here because we know that Snorlax on Riley's side, even without, you know, any of those boosts, does so much damage to the Snorlax. But he does go for the protect here as Ludicolo goes for the fake out into the Snorlax slot, and Riley's Snorlax also going to be using Curse, so he is going to be capitalizing on Trick Room as much as possible now. Going to be able to go first on here. You know, if Mike called that, he might be going for that Trick Room on here, but goes for the Toxic instead onto that Ludicolo spot. And it worked for him game 2. I don't know that it's going to benefit him now here in this third game.
Does Mike go for a double protect and a Trick Room reversal here? Because I don't really know what Mike can do to get out of this situation. But, I mean, I guess there's one win condition, and it's that Riley's running out of time.
What is he at right now?
He's at 56 seconds.
So, is he? Oh.
So, assuming he takes 10 seconds every turn, it realistically gives him 5 turns to, well, basically, for Mike to stall Riley out. And even without that, the fact that there's a hard turn limit based on Toxic, I think...
and every single one of Riley's Pokemon are poisoned right now.
As long as Mike plays in a very stally style, reminiscent of some of the players at the World Championships in 2016, I feel like Mike still has a chance. He just needs to maybe get lucky and get a couple...
He gets a double protect!
There we go.
He gets a double protect as Riley switches out that Tapu Koko from that Ludicolo. The double edge from Riley's Snorlax is going to be going into that protected spot.
So Riley covers that.
Yeah, and he does reverse the Trick Room, so Riley does cover the reverse Trick Room as well. But now this Snorlax is going to be faster on Mike's side, and that toxic damage on Riley's Snorlax is going to be stacking up even more now.
Yeah, now he has 2 turns maximum, unless he switches out, but then he can't really find a timing to recycle, so I think he just has to attack with Snorlax and take it from there.
I mean, I think right now there's nothing wrong with either, with Earthquaking on there, you know, because I mean, I mean, unless like the Tapu Koko decides to go for that Volt Switch, but that double protect, Mike needs to capitalize on that double protect right away, and you know, Riley needs to keep an eye out on his time. He's got less than a minute left now.
I think Riley already clicked his moves, or maybe not, because Mike's time was already frozen.
All right, so Riley withdrawing that Snorlax for the Pelipper, going to be bringing in that rain once more. So this is going to be our set weather. This Pelipper's still a pretty good health, obviously, but going for the third protect on here, which, you know, respectable, doesn't quite get it, but Thunder from Tapu Koko with 100% accuracy in rain is enough to pick up that knockout onto that Snorlax. But the, you know, this residual toxic damage, this Tapu Koko is at half
Light Screen.
And Light Screen going to be protecting itself from special moves, which, you know, I can completely understand and respect. This Tapu Koko is like, is going to be slowly getting knocked out. And
this shows the significance of the new timer rules at work, because in other formats with longer game clocks, I feel like Mike would be considered very behind. But in this specific situation, I don't think Mike is behind at all. With the toxic time limit, as well as the fact that Riley only has 23 seconds left, like this might actually result in Riley losing.
I will say though, that Cresselia has no way of hitting anything. It has no way of recovering HP right now.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a long shot, but I still think there is a way for Mike to win, even if that means that Riley has to misplay a little bit.
And I mean, it's hard because I'm not sure. Maybe this is gonna put it in like into barrier range. So you hear that Cresselia. Oh no, the burn.
I feel like the burn might. It has 227 HP, so after the burn, it might actually end up doing enough damage to block the berry. Oh man.
You know, you're gonna be hoping for that here, and I'm not even actually sure if Riley's got recycle on there. Is it enough to block the berry? No.
Oh wow.
Oh no. I think this is game.
Yeah, this might be game. Oh my god.
That's rough. Oh.
I think Pelipper has to go for Hurricane 100% though.
It goes for Scald on this. That might pop the berries.
Oh
that actually activates the berry.
I think that was a Hurricane turn, to be really honest.
That should have been Hurricane, yeah.
Oh man.
My goodness. So, I mean, if it lives the double edge on here, goes for the ice cream one more time, but there's not much else it can do. You know, it's already toxic to everything.
Yeah, honestly,
it lives this.
I think Riley still takes it, but Riley will have to be really fast on his hands, just clicking buttons.
Yeah. I mean, now it's
frantically.
Oh, this Snorlax manages to live. That is so 9 seconds left. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, but I think Riley's got this. 9 seconds is plenty of time.
If this Cresselia manages to avoid everything in the world, that would be amazing, you know? But this Cresselia gonna get hit by that Scald, gets a 0. That was the closest match I think we've had. That was absolutely amazing. Like, oh my goodness.
What a high level game.
Yeah,
that was a very high level set.
These two have given such a good top match. Like, oh my god, that was absolutely terrifying.
Both players found themselves in disadvantageous situations multiple times throughout the set. However, both players took everything they can, including RNG, critical hits, and, you know, stuff like Toxic that kind of has a bad rap for being stally, but, you know, that doesn't matter.
That was crazy. I mean, that's what Mike's team capitalizes on, and he did such a good job of it, and I think Riley kind of understood that and was able to do it. I think still that Toxic miss really hurt Mike, and it was really unfortunate, and, you know, Riley used it to his advantage, but I think Mike possibly could have capitalized maybe on that double protect even more. I mean, going for that triple protect is a little hard. It's like it's less than like 32% chance after that point, and I think it's hard. But honestly, what an exciting like 3 games. Like that was really stressful, and I wasn't even playing.
That got my heart pumping, even though I wasn't even playing.
Right, we're just like sitting there like, what's gonna happen?
That was the closest 4-0 we've ever seen in SoCal, probably. That is really fun.
Like, honestly, really good job to Mike. Like, I would be super. I mean, he still gets CP, top 8 gets CP in this PC. So Riley will be moving on to top 4 as I don't know who our other ones will. But we'll be right back immediately with your top 4 matches. So don't go anywhere, guys.
We'll be back soon.
That was